Hello, everybody. This is Blue Knight 7, and I'm following up from my previous couple episodes regarding Nintendo Switch today with a new episode here where I give predictions for the April 2nd, 2025 Nintendo Direct. Yeah, if you can't tell, I'm a Switch guy. But I wanted to start by just discussing what I expect the format of this to be. I do not think this is going to be a live show like they did in January 2017 to fully reveal the first Switch. I just don't think they want to do those things anymore. I think they're more interested in having these controlled, make the presentation, put it live on YouTube for the world to see. I just think they prefer that. And generally speaking, they pace much better and they get information out in a smaller amount of time. So, more efficient, I mean. So, I think that is the way they will go. Now, not to say the 2017 presentation was a bad one. I would say that was old school Nintendo at their best giving a live show. But, I think they just like the other method a lot better, and that's how they will go. That being said, I think this will be a longer Nintendo Direct than usual. I think that we will have a hardware overview at the beginning of this Direct, much like we saw in 2017, just outlining new features. I don't know how deep they'll go in the tech specs, but new features. And then they will do like they did before, just start announcing game after game. And I do think there will be a one more thing at the end, and we'll get to that in a minute or a few minutes. But sit back. I'm going to try to just go through what I expect to see from beginning to end for the Direct. I'm recording this on March 7th, and we may see changes in the news between now and then. So I may do this again closer to the Direct just in case I change my mind about some of this, or some of this we know won't happen or will happen. So, that being said, I do think we're going to get some kind of a maybe a quick second teaser like thing for Switch 2, like maybe what they would have done if they didn't feel some pressure to do what they did in January. I do think the January teaser was something that was done fairly quickly just to calm people down and in response to the leaks. I mean, I'm not saying everything they did was in response to the leaks, but I think they would have done a little more at a later date than what they did. I also think that we'll get more of a not so much. I don't think it'll be as long in time as what they did in 2017. I don't think they have as much to explain about what this new Switch does. We already know what Switch 1 does. I think they will focus more on what Switch 2 adds to the platform. I think they will explain that, yeah, it's a 1080p screen. I'm not expecting like a deep explanation of what NVIDIA has done in the way of DLSS and all that. I don't. That's not what Nintendo does in their presentations. I mean, to them, it's more about it's simple. You plug it in the dock, it looks good on your TV. So I don't think we're going to get like an amazing technical breakdown of what makes Switch 2 better from a computer chip perspective. I just don't. What I do hope to see, though, and I'm not sure if it will actually be a thing they specifically talk about, even, but I hope they do, is just be more specific on back compatibility with the Switch and what that means. In particular, what I want to know is, will these games upscale to 4K TVs well? Is there just a way they naturally do that? Do they have to download patches? Will these patches cost money? I think most people would agree we would like for these sub-Switch games to just upscale to 4K well. We want, and in particular, I'm thinking more about the games that had frame rate problems on Switch 1 or had dynamic resolution and, the Vaseline effect when you played these Switch 1 games as portable. Xenoblade 2 in particular is notorious for having low resolutions in portable mode because that dynamic resolution kept going up and down depending on what was going on in the game. And I would like to see improvement for certain games like that. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, another one. The frame rate was just bad. Even Grezzo's top-down Zelda games had frame rate hiccups. I would just like to know if any of these games will benefit under Switch 2 back compatibility or not. I'm assuming it would require a patch, but like I say, I don't know what's going to happen with that. And I'm particularly interested to know. It may not be part of this presentation, but that is something I would really like to know. A major focus, though, I think we'll definitely see something about is the mouse control of the Joy-Cons. We know they got optical sensors. We've seen patents for using them as a mouse. The teaser hinted at them being used like a mouse. I think it's just time we see what they intend to do with it. Now, I could do a whole episode just talking about the benefits of that, and I probably will. But the short version is first-person shooters, anybody that prefers mouse and keyboard play, here you go. Left Joy-Con, joystick, some buttons, right Joy-Con, mouse aiming, trigger buttons. Still got the stick and buttons on the side. This could be a game changer for a lot of first-person shooter games and just PC games that normally don't translate well to console. We'll talk more about games in a minute, but I do think this mouse control is going to be very important for this Direct and for the Switch 2 lineup in general. Going beyond mouse control for a minute. Well, one more thing before I get off of it. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw, like, during this Direct, like maybe an accessory that makes it feel more like a mouse grip that the Joy-Con falls into, and where you can still use the buttons for ergonomics. Because I just kind of wonder, I know they showed in the first teaser, they showed these little things you put on the ends of the Joy-Cons, and I'm sure they work. But I wouldn't be shocked if there was like a better grip available in case you want to really use the mouse for extended periods. The next thing I want to talk about is, it's pretty clear to me this Switch is going to have some kind of integrated voice chat. I truly believe that. I know there's speculation, but I believe that. There was recently a patent discovered, and RGT85 and some other YouTubers, Sunbro Nation, have already talked about it at length, for proximity chat, where your proximity in the game to certain people affects your ability to chat with them. I just think voice chat is part of the system. I think it's understood it has a microphone. And, a major criticism of Switch 1 was the fact that you had to use this Nintendo app, do voice chat through your phone on that app while you play a game on Switch. I think they just went ahead and integrated it this time. I believe that is a major feature that will be talked about. It may not be the one Nintendo really puts forward or advertises like a major feature, but I think amongst social media influencers, gamers, it's going to be talked about a lot. The other thing I would want to point out, hardware-wise, I feel like I'm going to smaller things, but this one's still kind of a big one. The mystery button on the right Joy-Con. There's a lot of discussion over what that button, sometimes shown with a C, is for. I'm going to give my theory, and it's not too exciting. I think it's the button to turn on mouse mode. I don't think it's a feature in itself. I think you use it for cursor controls. I think C is for cursor. It's also possible C is for chat. Like somehow it activates your chat. There's some talk about community. I'll get to that in a second. But I think my guess is it will go to activating one of the features I already talked about. That's my honest theory. I know some people might be disappointed with that, but that's what I think. Like, how do you put it in mouse mode? I think there's going to be games where you choose whether it's mouse mode or not. Will it be in the options menu, or will you just be able to hit a button on your controller? I think you'll be able to hit a button on your controller. But to me, those are the big ones. Now, another feature I think it could have, and would be tied to that C button, would be, what if they did bring back, and this kind of ties with chat a little bit, but what if they did bring back some kind of community feature like Wii U had with Miiverse? 3DS had Street Pass, which was a totally different beast. But let's say they brought something back like Miiverse. Could that C be for community? Possibly. Would it be tied in or with the Nintendo Switch Online? Probably. It could be something like that, though. I don't want to rule that out. I just don't know if they want to go back there. And with that, I'm not saying this will be the next thing they show at the Direct, but I think it'll be talked about at some point, is Nintendo Switch Online. Obviously, accounts are being carried over, so in a way that they haven't been able to in the past. So I think that's a good thing. We will keep our Nintendo Switch Online the old games, the apps for playing the old games. I think they're going to stay, and the game library is going to stay intact. I know there's been a sort of a mini uproar over Super Soccer getting took off. I think that was just a weird case for now. But I think we'll continue to get games added, and I think they'll go ahead and announce some more games to be added to different systems, like the ones already on there. Will they announce a new system? They could. I think it would be on the expansion pack side, like the side where you pay a little extra to access more games. I think we could get that. Which systems? Here's the thing. I know everybody wants GameCube on this service. There are a lot of good GameCube games they could put on this service. And GameCube games are the kind of size where I think it's feasible. I just think they look at those games and they tell themselves they could be doing remakes of these. Think about it. Wind Waker has an HD remake that everybody's expecting to see on Switch at some point. Switch 2, Switch 1, somehow. I talked about it in the last episode. Same for Twilight Princess. Same for Metroid Prime 2 and 3. Everybody's expecting a remake to be released. Metroid Prime 1 got a remake. An actual remake released on Switch. I just think for GameCube, they look at that tier of games, even if they're like over 20 years old at this point, as something where they can do remakes or remasters and get away with it. That's kind of what they've been doing. Pikmin 1, Pikmin 2, Metroid Prime, as I said earlier. Super Mario Sunshine was part of that Mario All-Stars collection. As much as I would love to see a group of GameCube games go over, I mean, I would play them. I would enjoy them. I just don't think Nintendo will do that. I think they would rather pick to sell remasters of standalone games, make the money off of those. But hypothetically, if they did put a GameCube system up, I'll go ahead and say what I would like to see on it. Go ahead and put the old version of Prime 1 on. Put Prime 2 and 3 just to settle that once and for all. Give us the old Wind Waker, the old Twilight Princess. You starting to see why I don't think it'll happen, though? I just don't think they'll do it. But go ahead and put those games on there if you're going to make the service, because that's what people would really want. Star Fox Adventure, Star Fox Assault, Fire Emblem, Path of Radiance. That's a big one. That would be the one where you can't really buy an old physical game on GameCube anymore because they're so expensive. Chibi Robo. Everybody talks about that game being hard to find. You know, there's options. Wave Race Blue Storm. You could make a very good lineup out of just what I just said for GameCube on NSO. What do I think we would get instead? I think there's a way for Virtual Boy to get there. And I know it does not sound near as good as GameCube. But there have been some breakthroughs outside of Nintendo on Virtual Boy emulation. I'm sure they've been working on their own thing. I think it's coming. I do think back in the 3DS era, it was a mistake to not have Virtual Boy games on 3DS. Like, there had to have been a way, even if they remade them from the ground up. Isn't that what 3D Classics were, basically? Like, remade from the ground up games? So, you know, to me, that would be an obvious thing to do at this point, would just be to get Virtual Boy. There aren't that many games. Just put it on the expansion pack for the people that really want them. Or put it in the regular, because it's an older system and lines up more Super NES and Game Boy. But one way or another, I think it could get thrown in there. I do think also there should be some more Game Boy Advance games find their way over. Generally speaking, expansion pack, there's some more N64 games they could get over, some N6, some Game Boy Advance games they could put in there. Oh, by the way, GameCube NSO, just put F-Zero GX in there, damn it. If they did it, that would make it a great lineup on something. But I think if you're really going to add a system and add it in the expansion pack tier, either I'm going to go with DS. I think they can emulate DS. They emulated it with Wii U, so don't tell me they can't do it. I think they would do something with Switch 2 to emulate DS, and that's what you would get. Which that'd be a good. You could do a lot of things with that for a lineup. Star Fox Command, New Super Mario Brothers, the first one. It was a DS game. Um, Super Mario 64 DS. I know a lot of people don't like it, but you could put it in there. Um, Legend of Zelda, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. You could put a DS. DS had a good library. You could put one together for it pretty easily. Mario Kart DS. It's not hard to do, is what I'm trying to say. You could do that pretty easily. I do think there's also possibility for a non-Nintendo console, like another one, to get into the mix. In the past, you had TurboGrafx 16 on Wii Virtual Console. Maybe figure out a way to bring it back. Bring back some of the ones we had before, Bonk's Adventure, Ys games, the old Ys games. There's stuff that could be done there. Also, and this was on the virtual console back then. I know we've had them in arcade archives in different ways now, but it wouldn't shock me if you saw a Neo Geo collection. I think SNK could work it out with them. So, those are ways I think they could go forward and do something. There's also other Sega consoles they could touch. Game Gear, Master Collection. There's a way forward with this NSO service as they are doing it. What I would really like to see them do for adding features to NSO is maybe give you an option to buy some of these games, like actually bring back the virtual console as we knew it. I don't think they're going to do that, but I would love to see them do that. And as I said earlier, there could be a community component they're adding to NSO. It could be tied to that C button. That may be where we actually see this come into play. We'll see, but I think the biggest NSO upgrade they could give us at this time would probably be something to do with voice chat. Just something that works better, integrated voice chat. And I already said I think it's in there. So that's why I talked about NSO second, because I think its features are tied to the hardware features. That's what I believe will happen. And with that, the only other thing I can think of as a lingering thing I didn't talk about earlier is, yes, there's an extra USB-C port up top. Can the Switch be played upside down? Probably. Will they show it? I could see them showing that. Do I think there's like big attachments or anything, like a second screen they'll show off with the Switch? I don't really believe that. I don't really buy into the bringing back the second screen stuff that some people want and expect to see. I think we're just getting a convenient extra USB-C port up top. I think it will charge better in tabletop mode that way, because you can plug that in at the top. I think we got a better kickstand. I do think there's this thing, a theme here, where they made the Switch 2 a little better for tabletop play. They gave it a better kickstand. They gave it a better USB-C port up top. It's just going to be better for tabletop play than Switch 1 was. Not that Switch 1 couldn't do it, but it helped a lot. Like if you bought a special stand from Hori that you could set in the stand and plug USB-C on the bottom through holes in the stand. There was always just a little extra aggravation, I thought, with tabletop mode. And the kickstand that came on Switch was a little flimsy. Switch OLED fixed that, but we're kind of going away from that for now. So at least they put in a better kickstand from Switch 1 for this one. And I think that's just sort of a major theme. Like, this is going to be a better one for tabletop. Also with the fact that it's a little bit bigger screen-wise and a little bit taller overall dimensions. I think this is going to be, the idea was to make this bigger, but also make it a better tabletop machine. that may show through in what we're see in the direct. Now, going to games, which I think is what most people really care about. You know, NSO was part of that for me, but I think most people really want to see a good launch lineup and just good games supporting Switch 2. I think that's the easiest thing to predict. That much is going to happen, okay? I think we're good. But as far as what we'll actually see, let me start out by saying, and this is sort of a prediction in itself, I do think we're going to see a combination of Switch 1 and 2 games. Why do I say that? I know we're focused on Switch 2, but all Switch 1 games will be on Switch 2. There are Switch 1 games we believe exist that we haven't heard about yet. We thought we were going to for a direct in February that never came. So I think we're going to just see them all at once. And they'll be shown with the understanding, yeah, you can play this on Switch 2. This will be part of the Switch 2 lineup, even if it's playable on Switch 1. If you already have Switch 1, hey, great, you can play this game as well. I think that's going to be the thinking. So, and I think they'll denote with each game whether it's Switch 1 or not. That's what I'm expecting. But I'm also expecting just one game after another. The floodgates have finally opened, so to speak, on April 2nd. So, what do we see? I do think they'll just lead out Mario Kart 9. They already teased it. Let's just show it and talk about it. And I'm trying not to talk too much about each game for time here, but I think Mario Kart 9 is going to be a big one. I think it's probably going to feel revolutionary in some way. I know there's people that's really overly analyzed that just few seconds long teaser of it. Good Vibes Gaming is a good one to check if you want that. But I think it's going to be something where track areas are greatly expanded. There's multiple tracks in an area maybe. I'm thinking it might be something like Forza, where it's a greater, or Forza Horizon, where it's a greater, large environment with multiple tracks, way to race through the environment. There's also some debate or discussion over whether fuel is a mechanic in this game, like gas tanks, fuel could be. I think it could be a touring thing where you have more road courses, like a rally racing, touring type thing, where it's not so much laps around a track as it is point A to point B. Get there first. Manage your fuel. We'll find out. We'll know. We'll know soon enough. I do think Metroid Prime 4 will be here. I don't think it's the one more thing, so to speak. I do think that they'll make a point to give it its own little section out of this direct. I do think that we'll see a trailer detailing gameplay a little more. I think, or maybe a story trailer too. I think we'll see more of the game here. And I do think it will have a larger chunk of time than some games. Mario Kart 9, Metroid Prime 4, I'll put them at the top for playtime, or airtime. I think Prime 4 will be shown as like a Switch 1 and Switch 2 cross-gen game where you can buy either version of the game. And I do think that it may be sort of like a Twilight Princess in that Switch 1 and Switch 2 have obvious differences. In this case, I think Prime 4 will have a graphic enhancement. Twilight Princess didn't really have that when it went on GameCube and Wii. It had basically the same graphics. They flipped it horizontally to make Link right-handed, like the entire game horizontally. because that made sense for programming, just to make Link right-handed, and gave him Wii motion controls. With Prime 4, I think we're going to get graphical enhancements. I think the frame rate might improve. I think we may get some extra lighting and ray tracing effects for Switch 2, along with 4K, like native 4K support. But I also believe that this will be the game that really highlights what I'll call them cursor controls can do for the game. I guess you know what I think the C button's really for. It's for the cursor. I think this will be the Metroid game where you can navigate the environment with the left Joy-Con buttons, stick, and use the right Joy-Con to aim and fire. That's what I believe. And you have the benefit of that stick and buttons on the side. Just use them. So you got full controller button layout plus cursor control. That's what I believe we got. This is sort of an evolution of what you had in Metroid Prime 3. No Wiimote, but you got Joy-Con cursor. I believe that's what's going on. Which, of course, I think everybody will just want the Switch 2 version once they see that. The difference. I think that's what's going on here. They'll have the Switch 1 for the people who wanted that, because it was always promised as a Switch 1 game. But I do believe there's going to be like a Switch 2 version. It's going to be like, why would we buy the Switch 1 at this point? Get the Switch 2 game. That's what I believe will happen with Metroid Prime 4. I'm going to peg it as a launch title, taking advantage of the launch hoopla. There is a small chance I think it comes out like the next month after launch. And I'll just go ahead and say it. I think they're going to announce that Switch is launching either May or June this year. I have no inside information. I have no idea. But I'm going to guess May or June. They're announcing it in April. Comes out 30 days later or 60 days later. That's my thought. So if hypothetically Switch is released in June, we get Metroid Prime 4 in July. That's what I believe. It'll be sort of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that come out a month later. That's what I think. Or it could be right there at launch. Because Mario Kart, everybody's going to buy it. It may be the Breath of the Wild for this generation that outsells Breath of the Wild. But I don't know if it's going to be like the greatest launch game ever, because not everybody's going to want the racing game as their launch game. I believe that's just my belief. I think Metroid Prime 4 balances Mario Kart well. That's why I think it's going to be launch or launch window. Other games, I still believe there's a Metroid Prime 2 and 3 for Switch 1. I think we'll see them at this, like it may be Shadow Drop that day for Switch 1. If they do go crazy and do a GameCube NSO, that's where we see them. I think, 3 was a Wii game. I have to take that back. I'll just say I think Metroid Prime 2 and 3 will get Shadow Dropped or something during this Direct. That would be my prediction. And I feel like I'm going to dwell on this longer than they actually will, but I do think we may see, like very quickly, some Switch 1 games getting announced or released throughout that are sort of bolstering Switch 2's year 1 lineup, but also their Switch 1 games. And I don't think a whole lot of time will be spent on these individually. I just don't. But I don't know if sizzle reel is appropriate though either. But last episode I talked about Switch 1 games that are remasters that'll probably come. You know, I'm talking about Kirby Planet Robobot. I'm talking about this Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War remake. I'm talking about Metroid Prime 2 and 3, like I just did a minute ago. I'm talking about Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess. I think they're all still on the table. I think they're all still in this, could be in this direct. I think they could be quickly announced as Switch 1 games that are also kind of part of Switch 2 lineup anyway. I think those will be mentioned in this direct. Genealogy of the Holy War could get a little more time than the others because we know what the others are. Genealogy is sort of a remake of a Super NES game that's being introduced to the West in a way that it hasn't been before. So I think it could get a little more showtime as, hey, Switch 2 is getting a Fire Emblem game. And it may be a Switch 1 game as well, is what I'm trying to say. So I think that could be something. But that's what I think as far as Switch 1 goes. I'm not trying to make this a Switch 1 direct. I think I've already talked about everything Switch 1 that will be there when I say that. There could be some third-party games in a sizzle reel, but I just don't think this is going to go beyond that for Switch 1. But that'd still be pretty good. Now, what else could we see? There's been rumors that there is some sort of a version of Breath of the Wild that's somehow redone for Switch 2. I don't know. I just feel like the game is still too recent to be doing that stuff. But could they do one that takes advantage of Switch hardware somehow and showcases the system for someone that just wanted a Zelda game at launch? Yeah, I guess they could. Does it add to the evergreen potential Breath of the Wild as a game going into Switch 2? Yeah, it does. Is it a patch where if you just have Breath of the Wild you can play it? Or it just gives you a reason to get Breath of the Wild for Switch 2? Yeah, I guess it could. So I'm not saying absolutely not. It just seems a little... Were they really putting resources on that? I know everybody believes that it's true, but at least in YouTube land. So we'll see. Do I think having an enhanced Breath of the Wild in the Switch 2 lineup helps it? Sure. I wonder if Wind Waker would have been more potent, though. We'll just have to see. Also, but beyond Breath of the Wild, possible Wind Waker release, Twilight Princess release, I think that's what you would expect for this particular direct. I know there's people talking up Ocarina of Time remake. I'll get into that more in a minute, but I just don't... it's not my first choice for what I would see there. Okay. Getting past that, I'll touch on Monolith Soft for a minute for two reasons. One, they have been we know they're working on something new. What we've seen come out of Monolith Soft is usually the work of like two supply lines or two teams. One team made Xenoblade 2 as a Wii U game, then moved it over to Switch. Then they worked on Xenoblade Remaster, the first Xenoblade Chronicles 1 Remaster. Then they went to Xenoblade X Remaster. That's my understanding for that team. Then they had a bigger team working on Xenoblade 3. And now since Xenoblade 3, they've been working on something else. Now, what is it? We don't know. There's also been support work on other Switch games along the way. But they're a very productive, prolific team, really. But what we do know is that they have put out concept art in the past for some new IP they've supposedly been working on. Seems to be more of a medieval fantasy like you'd see another JRPG. Other JRPGs do. The art looks really good. It's not really something we associate with Monolith lately with Xenoblade, but remember they made Baten Kaitos. They do have a pedigree going back to Squaresoft, Square Enix now. So yeah, they could be working on something very different or perhaps more traditional for a JRPG. And I think we could see that here. Maybe not, I don't know if it'd be released this year or not, but I think we could see that here. Like maybe for end of the year, in development, something. I also think we could see, and this is something I've heard talked about before, and every time I look at it, I think, why isn't there one in development? What if Tecmo comes forward with Xenoblade Warriors? We've had Zelda, like Hyrule Warriors. We've had Fire Emblem Warriors. 2 games out of both of them. Xenoblade just seems like a real obvious one. So I think that is something we could see. And I think it would be a great Warriors. If, I bought Hyrule Warriors. I'm not really a big Warriors gamer myself, but I would buy Xenoblade Warriors. So there's a prediction. That would give you 2 monoliths. You get a Xenoblade game on top of X, and you would get whatever else Monolith Soft's been working on. And do I think there's other stuff in the works too? Yes, I don't have strong opinions or like I think there probably is a Splatoon 4 in the works, and I think we would see that. I think there may be a new IP, which I'm not going to say what it is because it's usually a big surprise when you do that. I think there could be some other remasters we hear about, like Kirby Planet Robobot for Switch 1, or maybe even Kid Icarus for Switch 1. Who knows? I think we could get a teaser for Smash Brothers from Sakurai. Masahiro Sakurai. He's working on something. He's already said that. It could be Kid Icarus. It could be Smash Brothers. I think it's possible we hear from him. So that's a pretty good lineup from Nintendo first party if they did the things I just said. I also think there's probably a F-Zero or a Star Fox involved. There's been rumors for both. There's been rumors that there may be a Star Fox Adventures in the wings. I'm not taking it too serious yet. I want it. I said in the prior episode I want it. I'll believe it when I see it, though. We'll see. F-Zero, yeah, I would love to see a remaster GX if you want to go into the remaster pile again. I would love to see GX find its way. Or just a new F-Zero game. Just give me one. F-Zero 99 was great, but give me the full fat experience. I don't think they'd have F-Zero at launch next to Mario Kart, though, so we'll just have to see. Now I'm going to go to what could be very interesting is third parties. And I think they'll be laced in amongst this. And I'm not saying there'll be a lot of third parties at this particular direct, because I think they'll want to talk about their games. But, it's not strange to see third party games in a direct. If they were to do a flat out special event for a third party person showing up to a direct like they have done before, I think it would be Microsoft, and I think it would be Phil Spencer walking up, Slick Philly walking up to say, hey, we are giving Microsoft games to Nintendo Switch platform. What could we see? Halo Master Chief Collection has been heavily rumored. I'll go with that, sure. I think some of their older Xbox games are like easy bets. Killer Instinct, the Xbox One version, Killer Instinct. I think we could see some more rare games on Nintendo Switch Online. That's not hard to predict because there's still a few left. I think Battletoads on NES for NSO, the recent Battletoads game, could come to Switch very easily. I know not everybody was fond of that one, but to me it's just easy fodder. Like just send it. I think other Xbox games we've seen in recent memory are, I mean, any of them's up for grabs, is what I'm trying to say. I think Horizon 5 is an option. I'm not saying the very cutting edge ones that are about to come out are guaranteed to come to Switch 2, but I think there's a lot in their back catalog now that could easily go over. And I'll get bold here and say I think Perfect Dark will be a Switch 2 game. I don't know if it'll be at this direct, but I think we'll eventually get Perfect Dark. So I think Halo Infinite's an option. Basically, if it can run on a Series S, I think it could come to Switch. So that's kind of where I see that. I think Phil Spencer will come along, even if he doesn't come in person. I do think there will be some Xbox games finding their way to Switch, and they'll be in this direct. Other third parties, Capcom, to me, that's a potential big one. I think they'll have some kind of a Monster Hunter announcement. I'm not saying the recent game, but what if they ported Monster Hunter Worlds? I just think there's potential for them to do something in that way. I said before I want Mega Man and I want Street Fighter. Street Fighter 6 is possible. But I think they'll do something. Namco, I could see Harada walking out there and announcing Tekken 8 and that be the fighting game. Like no Street Fighter, we just hear about Tekken. Tekken 8, yeah, I think that's easy. I think in general you're going to see more Namco support this generation. So, could we see Tekken? Yeah. I don't know what we'd see for a Tales game right now. But generally speaking, I could see Namco announcing something for Switch 2. Elden Ring through From Software would be an obvious one too. Armored Core, the new Armored Core game would be like an easy one, I think. That's probably there. Also, we've seen teasers for a Daemon X Machina too. I know that's not like a big name that everybody recognizes, but that was a mech game for Switch. I think that came to Switch from Marvelous. I think that could be here because they haven't said anything about that game in a long time. This might be the time for that one. Another game I think we could see, and I think this is one we'd see at this direct or early on for Switch, and I've talked about it before, but CD Projekt Red coming with a version of Cyberpunk 2077 for Switch 2. And I've talked about it before, but just real quickly, I think it could be a good technical showcase for Switch 2. Switch 2 uses NVIDIA graphics tech, which Cyberpunk kind of plays well with. I think it would be a way to showcase what it can do for ray tracing, what it can do with its DLSS. It's not, it's a very mature game. It's not for everybody, but it will be a very good game now for those that would want to play it. And for those who say it releases a bad game, yeah, it did, but it's a lot better now. So don't be shocked and Virtuos has done recent work on patches for that game. So don't be shocked if we find out CD Projekt Red and Virtuos are bringing Cyberpunk to Switch 2. I said it. And, do I think that is a game that you see as a trailer for Switch, I don't know. I think that could be a sizzle reel. I think there'll be a sizzle reel that could have any combination of what I just said and some more games. Um, we'll see. But I think there'll be a sizzle reel. And at the end, we could have a one more thing. I think there will be a one more thing. What will that be? There's been all kinds of talk about a 3D Mario game, and I think that's what they'll do. Now, I know it doesn't sound like a Breath of the Wild moment, but hear me out, because I think this 3D Mario may be kind of special. For two reasons. One is that I think they've took whatever they learned in Bowser's Fury and made an open world Mario game. So this could be the Breath of the Wild moment for Mario. That in itself is probably going to make this like a top tier announcement. So why wouldn't they close off with it? Something they have not shown or hinted at all. The second thing, I believe this. We do know Nintendo has really pushed with Donkey Kong recently. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. Universal Studios adding to their Mario World park with a Donkey Kong Country park. Even a year ago, we had Mario vs. Donkey Kong released as a remake of the old Game Boy Advance game. And my whole point in bringing all of these up is I think this is a 3D Mario game where Donkey Kong plays an important part of the game. I think you will play as Mario and you can play as Donkey Kong, and you both can play co-op in this world, game world. Remember the scene from the Mario movie where, and I don't consider this a spoiler, it was in movie trailers I believe, Mario and Donkey Kong run through a level Mario style? I think that may be what we get. It could be something like that. Imagine that as an actual game. That would actually be the Mario moment we've never really had as a game. I think that could be coming. That would be one crazy trailer if they showed that. And that'd be a game that comes out, let's say, holiday this year or later this year. It would kind of explain rumors we've had about Mario Team working on a Donkey Kong game. It would also just fill the slot where we just expect them to be working on a 3D Mario game. It just, to me, that's what makes sense. And that would be a way to take Mario in a new direction and new heights and just make a game that tops Odyssey. I played Mario Odyssey again recently. Played through it. Just kind of got the first round of stars, played through the story of the game. Didn't really get into the post game again. But my thought as I was playing through is they did this in 2017. Like, this really was Mario 64 on steroids, and Mario 64 took in all the directions I think we would have rather they did in Sunshine and I dare say Galaxy. Like, I prefer Odyssey to those games myself. And if they take what they did with Odyssey, made the game world feel more like an open world than what they did with Odyssey, and then add layers where you play alongside Donkey Kong with his own set of abilities, let's say, or his own take on Mario. I know Donkey Kong Country is kind of a different, distinct take on the side scrollers compared to Mario. And Donkey Kong 64 was, you could say, it was take Super Mario 64 and just jack it up to a ridiculous amount of collectathon. But what if we just had a game where Mario and DK traversed the world a little differently, and you needed both to complete objectives? Whether it's co-op or switching between the players. I think that could be an amazing, memorable experience for a Mario game. So that's what I'm going to throw out there. Do you want an alternate? I'll give you one. No. We don't know what the next new Zelda game will be. Everything I talked about just now was remasters. There has been hints that maybe there's an Ocarina of Time remake in the works. I don't think they would show that this year, just because I guess you can tell from what I said earlier that this is probably when we're actually getting like Wind Waker remake, Twilight Princess remake, and maybe they give us an enhanced Breath of the Wild. Like, I just think it's a remake year. But could they give us a one more thing where we see Ocarina of Time remade? Possible. I mean, I think I saw the other day that the amount of time between now and that 3DS remake, we're now at like the same length of time between those 2 points as the 3DS remake was to the Nintendo 64 release. Probably further now. And I think that's true. I think it could be a possible remake for Switch 2. We could have a very graphically enhanced Hyrule. Maybe a retelling of Ocarina of Time that somehow laces the story and the timelines together a little better, and maybe laces itself into the story of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom a little better. I think it could happen. But I don't know. Part of me wants to say it's a long shot, but then again, some would say the 3D Mario I laid out was a long shot, but I don't think anybody would dispute that we're getting a 3D Mario. So we'll see. I do think that could be an amazing jaw-dropping one more thing trailer too, though, just to see Ocarina of Time maybe remade from the ground up as a Switch 2 game. I'm not sure how well. I love Ocarina of Time. It's my favorite Zelda game. But when you look at the size of the world you play in and things like that, I wonder if people will say it has not aged well. But could it be? Is it a worthwhile release for Switch 2? Of course it is. Do I think it's the one more thing that makes you feel like, yes, this is the next generation? I think that's what the 3D Mario will do. But we'll see. And I'll cap it off with that. I know I've went pretty long with this episode. Thank you very much for listening to the episode 6 of the Blue Knight Cast. I hope you enjoyed listening to me speculate on what this April 2nd Nintendo Direct will contain. That's sort of my prediction for now. I may do this again just to change it a little bit as we get closer, depending on the news that comes in. But if you enjoyed listening to me, please like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. I'm trying to grow this channel. I'm trying to make this something where I'm just constantly talking about these things. Thank you for your time listening to me, and have a good day.